And here with the Digital Digest, and today I wanted to share my full review, the digitally digested segment for the Sony 24mm f2.8 G-Series lens. Now this is part of a launch of 3 compact new primes from Sony for E-mount full-frame cameras, clearly targeting the A7C. And if, like me, you've been a Sony mirrorless fan from the beginning, in fact, I've pretty much covered almost all of Sony's full-frame as well as APS-C E-mount cameras to date, then you know that they began small. And over time, things got larger and larger in order to compete with the rest of the players in the DI industry. And now we've got this return to Sony's roots. I mean, ever since they purchased, Konica Minolta and really became a force in DI. So I say that because the A7C, in my opinion, was the camera that so many people were waiting for in the APS-C realm, which was really the cream of the crop in a compact body. And that's exactly what the A7C is. It's full frame, it has all the bells and whistles of what traditionally would require a larger footprint, but what was missing was a glass lineup. And of course, the 3 lenses that I shared with all of you a while back, they're just the beginning, I believe, of Sony scratching the surface of a return to a theme of less is more, and bigger isn't always better. Insert your joke there. So, with this 24mm prime, we have all of the aesthetic and nuance that Sony traditionally incorporates into their larger full-frame glass, except we don't have the price point. Of course, this is a little under $600 US. In addition to that, it's not as hefty as you might expect. It's still very well made, still has weather sealing, although I do not recommend getting this or any other lens wet. Do yourself a favor. If you're a pro, you already know what you're doing. You know the threshold. You know when you're pushing it. And if the shot is worth more than the gear, well, then you know what to do and when to do it. But surprisingly, the 24mm out of the lineup of the 3 brand new lenses that they launched, they being Sony, is my favorite. Now, I had read some things initially about the 24 being soft and not really being able to deliver in this brand new compact prime crop that Sony introduced, which includes, of course, a 40mm that you can see right here, as well as a 50mm that you can see right here. All really small, really compact, and ideal, again, for the A7C. But what I really like about the 24 is really its focal length, because if you're going to ask me what I would be looking for in a compact prime, it would be something wide, and that's exactly what you're getting with this 24mm option. Now, yes, there are other products on the market. The only ones I would really consider outside of Sony's compact primes are what Sigma has to market already. In fact, Sigma actually announced their lenses before Sony did. Of course, that didn't mean Sony was sleeping. It was just, I think, intelligent and awareness on Sigma's behalf to know that this is where consumers are flocking. And if I had to guess which camera is selling best right now in Sony's lineup of full-frame E-mount bodies, I would guess the A7C, because if I didn't own an A-series full-frame camera at all, this is probably where I would start, because as I mentioned at the top of the video, this is where Sony's success came to life. It was in incredibly small, interchangeable, mirrorless cameras with phenomenal still and video performance, and that is what the A7C brings back to the game. So you don't need to have something that is essentially a weight that will give you back problems, shoulder problems, all of those things from shooting. Whether you're an amateur or pro, it doesn't matter. That is the beauty of the A7C, and I do think Sony's going to build out this line. I think the C line is going to grow. I wouldn't be shocked if we see an A9C. I wouldn't be shocked if we see an A6C. They have the versatility to take this in any direction, and that's the beauty of the experiment. But back to the 24mm. It really delivers solid still and video performance. If I could pick, as I said earlier, only one of the compact primes, this would be the one. Because personally, I prefer this over the 40 or the 50mm in terms of focal range for at least my style of shooting. I'm more of a wide-angle shooter. And if I want to adapt this, not adapt it because it doesn't need to be adapted, but throw this on my A7R4 or my A7R2, it does take that camera body, it does shrink it down considerably, and yet I don't feel like I'm giving up any quality. Now, one of the really nice things about the design language from Sony's G series making it to these compact, affordable lenses, of course, the focus switch, which is not anything new. You'll find that on all of their lenses, pretty much. And then, of course, we have a aperture ring, a focus ring, but then down here on the bottom, something that Sony has, I'm not going to say become famous for, but it's critical if you are a hybrid shooter like myself, interested in still and video, is the ability to turn that click on and off. So when it's off and you want to shoot video and change your aperture, completely silent transition. When you're in still mode, you don't even have to look, you probably know, and if you start in one place, you obviously know what direction you're going in as you take those steps. So I really appreciate that. The first camera that I fell in love with that feature was my original RX1, and so to have it come to life in a body like this with a wide angle prime like this is quite amazing. So both on still and video capability, really like this lens. The balance on the A7C is phenomenal, and it kind of makes me want to buy an A7C. I'm controlling myself because I don't need it, and as much as I like the A7C, I really think, as I stated earlier in the video, Sony has more in store for us. When it comes to the actual overall construction, I've already mentioned, it just feels like a miniaturized G series, but the performance does not. And no problem when it comes to resolving the actual overall information on the full frame sensor that the A7C has on board. Now, I mentioned my A7R4, I mentioned my A7R2. Those are cameras where I will not recommend this lens. Now, that's not to say that it isn't cute to throw on the body and have a really compact, go anywhere. It is. But the beauty of the A7R line is utilizing all of those megapixels. And at least to my eye, this little 24 mil prime, as good as it is, there is a trade-off for its form factor, and it resolves fine with the A7C, but again, I don't think that it can live up to the more dense sensors that you're getting on the R line of full-frame cameras from Sony. So again, you can use it just like you can use it on an APS-C camera, because of course it does have that flexibility. That's the beauty of E-mount. There's a crop factor in full frame. Obviously, if you're using an APS-C lens, and then vice versa, if you're throwing this onto an APS-C body, then there's going to be a crop factor. It's not going to be 24 mil, it's going to be a little bit longer. It has that multiple. So you have to be aware of that. But again, for vlogging, for landscape, for street photography, I kind of love this lens. Compact, does what it's supposed to. You have that button, which, generally the original purpose of these buttons on longer lenses was really to lock focus on a subject and hold it, but you can customize this. So one thing that I've been doing with all of the compact primes that Sony launched is, at least on the longer ones, like the 50 is a good example, go ahead and customize it to switch over to APS-C crop mode, and then you have a little bit more reach on that lens, makes it a little more versatile. That's one of the things I like. Here, again, the same can be said. Whatever you want to customize it to do, you can, and I think that's really nice. But really, again, this is all about accommodating this brand new form factor, which really isn't new in the Sony world. Again, I will reiterate, this is where it all began. Sony made its mark by saying, look at Canon, look at Nikon, they're making giant bricks, and you don't need that in the modern world of photography or videography. I should just say digital imaging. And they were right. They proved that with their technology and their rollout. They even used to undercut on pricing all of the competition. Now, of course, that's changed. As Sony has become #1 in the business, which they have, they've started to outprice. They've come in with higher price points. We've got the A1 now, which I can't wait to share with all of you. That is a dynamic beast of a camera, but it's also very expensive at $6,500 US. But when I think of the A7C, again, I think of a camera that accommodates every walk of life, from just enthusiasts, hobbyists, amateurs, all the way up to the pro that wants something that's more casual, that they know they can rely on, that isn't going to break their back. And this isn't a matter of hitting the gym. Hate to break it to those of you who are, such spring chickens that you don't know yet, but over time, things change. I'm not an old man, but I've had slip discs for years from playing sports and from different injuries associated with scuba diving, things like that. And I have to say that the A7C is a blessing. So I'm really tempted to buy it, but like I said, I'm holding off until we see a little more tech crammed into what is already an incredible body. But this would be the #1 lens on my list to pair with the A7C, no question about it. How could it be made better? Well, if it was able to resolve a little more resolution, like I was mentioning before, that would make me feel like it was more versatile to really also, be stuck on my A7R 2 or 4. I'll grab the 2 just to show you. I wasn't planning on doing that because, again, I don't feel like this is that kind of lens that A7R 2 owners are going to want to use. There's a reason Sony's been manufacturing much larger lenses for a very long time, and that's because, quite frankly, that's where they needed larger assemblies in order to give us the glass necessary to really accommodate. And just for scale, there's the 24-105, which pretty much lives on my A7R 2. Fantastic lens with much of the same accoutrement in terms of, the switches for everything. I mean, no steady shot on this lens, by the way. It's a prime. That's not really to be expected. But, the customizable button, your focus, all of that stuff. But no click on this because it's just not that kind of lens. And by the way, the 24-105 is still one of the most popular for a reason. But let's just take a look. Again, you get that side by side. Another thing I have with the A7C is what it's borrowed from the APS-C line, which is that flush left EVF, which for me, as someone who is left eye dominant and wears glasses, it's a bit of a nightmare. But it's still one of the best in the business. And tell me that is not just awesome. I mean, so from an aesthetic standpoint, I love this look. I love the balance. And it's great. But again, I didn't spend a huge amount of time using it with the A7R2 or my A7R4 because at the end of the day, I know that this is meant to live on this guy right here. So it's really a matter of personal preference. I'm not saying, again, I'll reiterate at this point, you can get really nice images out of this pairing. But also remember, this is G-Series glass aimed at being affordable. And that's part of the reason it's not going, in my opinion, to really deliver the full competency of the A7R's language. I mean, the whole premise of the A7R is to give you the highest fidelity Sony can offer. And these lenses are designed to give you compact affordability. So it's just obvious at, reading the street signs at stage 1, so to speak, this is not, even though it will work here and it looks good, because it really does. This is a handsome pairing. The fact of the matter is that I don't recommend it for R-series cameras, so while it's compatible, it's not ideal. I'd much rather see someone go with the 24 G Master or, of course, the 20 G Series, a favorite of mine that I almost bought, still controlling myself because, we've been riding out this pandemic and I haven't been taking as many shots out and about as I'd like because at least where I live, people don't think there's a pandemic as opposed to where I'm from. And then in addition to that, there are just, I feel like more and more stuff is coming out. The fact that I've been sharing with all of you so much brand new glass from Sigma for E-mount, and Tamron is launching more stuff. Samyang, there are so many options. It's like, boy, have the roles or the tables been turned, roles reversed. Once upon a time, it was Sony was making great bodies, but there was no glass. Every photographer, whether they were a pro or Joe Schmo, the complaint was, what good is a body if I have no lenses to put on it? And Sony's answer was, well, you can adapt anything. We have adapters. And most people said, I'm not interested in that. And that's understandable. But now, everyone is lining up making E-mount glass. So again, this 24mm you really cannot go wrong with, but do yourself a favor and let it live on the A7C. Again, in a pinch, I'm not saying it can't be used here. It can. And I could even see myself using it on the A7R II, but that's with understanding I'm not going to get full resolution competency. I mean, even older, more expensive Sony E-mount lenses don't take full advantage. That was kind of, one of those aha moments where I'm not going to say Sony was caught with their pants down. I don't even like that expression. I just used it, so I'm a bit of a schmuck. But the point is that in order to really get the most out of the resolution offered by the A7R line, you do have to pick your lenses carefully. And my coverage should help with that, even though I'm not showing you samples. Anyone who follows my channel knows I just speak truth, and that's it. And I try to look at things from just about every user's perspective, at least that I can fathom. So, again, the A7R line, not really where this is going to be best suited, and that should be obvious. I mean, a $600 lens, if you could make an A7R shine with that, Sony would be cannibalizing their own line of lenses. The 24-105, I feel like is versatile enough to live on anything, but throw that on the A7C and it's not horrible, but it's not ideal. And that's why I can't wait to see what Sony ends up offering in terms of compact zoom lenses. I mean, that's when things are going to get really interesting for me personally. But the beauty of the 24mm, the 40mm, the 50, even if I feel like the 40 and the 50 overlap a little too much, is that for the price of one good lens, you now could have 3 in a bag and still not only not break the bank, but certainly not break your back. The 24 f2.8 is an easy recommendation for me. And at the end of this day, it is my pick among Sony's current crop of compact primes for the A7C. And if I could test it on the FX3, well, I'd give input, but I still have not had the pleasure of getting my FX3 review unit. But that rounds things out. 17 minutes because this is reigniting my love affair with tiny cameras that perform incredibly well. And I can't wait to see what Sony does going forward. Of course, they just announced the G Master 14mm, which is bonkers. I might have to succumb to purchasing that. It's kind of what I've been waiting for, but I'll wait for my review unit. And if you want, you can wait to hear what I have to say about it. Any questions or comments, please feel free to post them. Hit that like button. And as usual, please feel free to subscribe. And please stay safe. Later.